All right, gang, let's take a second glance at the text. So, one of the things we didn't talk about this morning were the first 11 verses of chapter 2. And it's a pretty famous section. This is where Jesus goes to a wedding. He shows up with his disciples at this wedding in Cana. And in the middle of this wedding, his mom looks at him and says, hey, they have a problem. There is no more wine. And so Jesus points the people over to these jars. He says, fill them to the brim with water, and then draw it out and take it over to the master of ceremonies. And when they do, the master of ceremonies takes this cup, which was water drawn from these jars, and he says, wow, this wine is absolutely amazing, and you have done a wonderful thing. Most people give the best wine first, and then they bring in the cheap wine. But you started with regular wine, and you saved the best for last. The new is now better than the old. So it's a very popular passage for us. But let me set some context for you. We got to understand, look, a wedding in our day, you show up to the church, you show up to whatever the destination is. There's about a 45-minute ceremony at most. You take pictures, you have your 2, 3, 4-hour reception, then the door's shut and everybody goes home. But at this time in the ancient Near East, weddings lasted a week. The wedding feast was this week-long celebration in all of town. And there was a legal obligation for the groom. He had to provide food and drink for anybody that would come that whole week. It's part of the way that he proved himself worthy enough to take that bride. Now, huge problem. It's the third day, and they're out of wine. So one, it's embarrassing. 2, it then actually, there are some extra biblical accounts where he would be held legally liable, meaning he could get in trouble, not just shame, but actual injury trouble because he ran out of provisions so soon. So this couple's in a conundrum. And one of the things that we see Jesus doing is Jesus provides for them. So in a very basic level of this story, we see Jesus come to the rescue. Somebody's in dire straits, and Jesus shows up. They don't have what they need, and Jesus provides for them. So a couple lessons we're going to pull out of it. One is Jesus provided in abundance. If we look at the text, it says there were 6 jars, and what they held was anywhere from 20 to 30 gallons each. Jesus gave them 180 gallons of what the master of ceremony called the best wine. So in Jesus' provision, he doesn't just meet their need, but he blew it out of the water. Jesus exceeded their need and provided for them this amazing abundance and provision of wine. Now, there's a couple things we can learn about this. One, we can look and see that is what Jesus does. Jesus meets our needs, our most basic need, our daily bread, which is a relationship with God. He is able to rescue us from catastrophe and danger and separation and shame and injury because he has redeemed us. So the first lesson, so to speak, from this is that Jesus meets our most basic needs. There's also a little bit of a metaphor going on here. Those jars, they were for washing hands, but not just the hygienic washing of hands. They were the jars that were put out for people to do the religious ritual of, I've washed my hands, now I'm going to do the purification rite to show you that I'm clean. And they were old. And Jesus, by saying fill it to the brim and changing it from this water of purification to the wine of joy, is a reminder that Jesus is bringing into our lives a joy that the old covenant couldn't bring, that the rituals and the law, he brings into our life something greater and something better when he brings grace than the law could ever provide, than the rituals could ever provide. He takes a tired, ineffective system and he turns it into something amazing and new. And that's why it's so poignant when the master of ceremonies says, wow, what's happened now is so much better than what most people do. The new is so much better than the old. What has been brought before us right now is so much greater than what had been. And gang, that's a big lesson for us. What Jesus was ushering in with the new covenant of grace and truth was so much better than the old covenant of law and external righteousness that we could never keep. The very first miracle Jesus does is to transform the rite and religious activities of Israel into the joy and the grace of a relationship with Jesus Christ. This is an important and a poignant miracle and an amazing start to his ministry. He essentially sets the theme that the new is going to be better than the old. That the joy of Israel that had run out, that he was going to supply in abundance. That what he was bringing in grace was much better than anything they have ever experienced.